Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about what God is telling me right now. Coming right up. You're going, well, that's really inspecific. Okay, first off, I got really sick August 11th or something like that. And I haven't been on air because my, cough was really bad. I was just in a healing yesterday and I'm walking that healing out. So we are believing that I am healed of this and I won't be coughing, but it doesn't mean that I won't have some of the residuals. So here's what we're going to talk about today. I think the world is, the world's in a struggle. Right today, it's, the 14th of September, and everyone's freaking out. Listen, as a business, if it keeps going this direction with inflation in this kind of way, because they say inflation is 9%, 8-9%, baloney. It's actually higher than that because every other time frame when you calculated inflation, you added oil issues in there, oil prices, because we have the petro dollar, oil dollar. And so they deleted that so they could manipulate the inflation points. We're actually at around 19-20% inflation. So it's a lie from the pit of hell, all these idiots. And by the way, if we just keep going this direction, in maybe 6 months for me, or maybe more, the business would fail. Every type of thing is going to fail. When people say to me, well, Trump's not going to come back until 2023 or 2024, well, let's just vote him in then. The country will be gone. And even Trump says that, but you're not listening. You're not hearing behind it. I want to teach you a sign. This is friend. This means relationship. Now, if I just did like this, I basically am saying, I have an acquaintance, yeah, I know who he is, kind of thing. But if I'm talking about my wife, who's my lover, my friend, my confidant, the one who kicks my butt when I need that stuff, I do this. Do you see the difference? Acquaintance. Okay? We have been missing these conversations. We have been missing the in-between of the same exact word. We hear inflation, or he's going to come back, or this issue. We've been reading the information from other truthers, and we've been hearing the ideas and missing the inside context. This is one of the most secret operations in the history of the world. But you're missing a couple things from what the Word is talking about. Now, I'm going to tell you some of this stuff. I have Revelations of the Red Pill. You can go to drscottyoung.com. You can pick up Revelations of the Red Pill, $10. It's worth it. Okay, it'll help you out with this stuff. We are struggling with the idea of the who, the why, the when, and the how. Now, in end time issues, when I first was building the series called Hope in the Last Days, you can kind of go onto the YouTube channel. You can see this in the future. We will load it up as a product that you can buy on the website. Probably be $50, $100. I don't exactly know when we do a digital download, and they'll have all the cool information like my notes and study kind of things that you could kind of do for a Bible study. So Hope in the Last Days, and one of the key elements that I talk about is that we always want to ask these questions. We want to ask the when and the how. Now, in the truther movement, we're struggling with the same thing. If you set a YouTube channel, a Rumble channel, a whatever, a Telegram channel, and you're trying to answer the hows and the whens, I mean, you are going to have like an explosion. Some people ask, well, why don't you do a podcast? God told me not to. I'm like, well, you should do it anyway. Shut up. I'm not doing that. The questions that, this is what we want to know. Because what we're really asking for is predictive. Because these questions here actually give us a predictive nature. When we know the hows, we can understand that predictive point. When we know the whens, we can have a better understanding of timing to that predictive point. Okay? And what that really means is prophecy. In Scripture, we call it, I mean, in other ways we call it predictive, but this is prophecy. And in prophecy, what we're looking for is the future. Okay? And that's why time travel is so fascinating for people. And I know a lot of people talk about that there's Operation Looking Glass. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. The reason is that the New Testament talks about Jesus, and he says, from the foundation of the earth, the Lamb was slain, or from the foundation of the earth. Only God, who is outside of time, can understand time. Let me give you even a cooler one. In Revelation 1 through 3, John is stuck at 95. There's my cough. There's my cough showing up. Sorry about that. He's stuck in 95 AD. And he uses a verb tense. And that verb tense is of the now. So he's basically saying, you know, this, and this, and that. You know, he's saying the now. When he moves in to Revelation 4 to 19, and actually through 22, he uses something very fascinating that most people don't spend time on. He uses a future, oh wait, sorry, Scott, we always think of it as a future. If I'm talking about the future, like I'm going to go to this, then, you know, I'm going to do it next month. Next month I will go, right? And I say will go means a future tense point. Sorry, and I wrote this wrong. But that's not how you would, I mean, that's not how he wrote it, because that's how I would write things. I mean, when you're, as a writer, I have to be very careful. And I make this mistake, and so does every other writer. You're writing along, and you'll flip from, you know, past tense to future tense, and, you know, present tense, and you just kind of mess this up. And you need readers just to kind of catch this stuff. But what John does, he moves into what is our point called the future. So this is what I really wanted to say. And he moves into the future, but he uses the verb tense. It's a past tense verb basis. You go, what? Okay, let me explain what that means. From his perspective, outside of time, so he moves from 95 AD to our future. And he's moving at Revelation 22. He is at the very end of everything. I mean, the heaven and earth have passed away. You know, I mean, it's all done. Everyone is resurrected, blah, 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 to the end of the time. And he's still using a past tense reference all the way through. It's so fascinating because he's going into predictive prophecy here. But he doesn't always answer these powerful questions of the when and the hows. And you're going, no, wait a second. When you're doing prophecy, you should be telling the winds. But he doesn't do it. He doesn't answer those questions. I don't know if you've ever played the game like, I'm only going to answer a yes or no question. I mean, answer the yes or no, right? Isn't it 21 questions or something like that? I don't play the game, but you get the idea. And so he has the 21 questions in there, and so you're asking yes or no. And if you don't ask the right questions, I mean, you can't even ask a yes or no. If you say, how is that going to happen? You're like, you got to ask the yes or no questions. When you're talking to God and you ask a question that is relatively meaningless, doesn't mean that he couldn't, but he won't answer those questions. Because if you knew your future, if you right today are 30 years old and you knew that you would live to 64 years old, just make up a number, okay? And you would live to that age, you might be reckless through this 34 years, correct? It's a real interesting time travel conversation that we talk about. And if you knew your future, you would make bad decisions here. And in alternate universe kind of theories, which is wrong because the Bible is set. It knows the future because God already understands the future. In alternate universe history kind of thing, you could actually die here at 32 years old or whatever, right? Now, if we knew the future, we would have a problem. So time travel conversations always never want to answer this question, the hows or the whens. Did you catch that? We keep asking the wrong questions in here. We never spend time on this, the why and the who. Because if we spent time upon the why and the who, we would understand more. Guys, when you read the 17th letter, military intelligence points, the 17th letter doesn't give you all the wins in the house. Because they're controlling a chessboard. Now, there are things that are outside the control. And they actually think about this stuff. I actually believe that when they've given you predictive points of some date in August or May or whatever, I believe personally that they actually had many dates that they could do it. So they kind of put out their crumbs of, May 13th or whatever. And they had maybe 10, 12, 15 of those. And when they come to this point of answering the real when questions, and the number one question I hear is when. When is this going to happen? And if you're watching this, maybe that's already answered, hopefully. And you ask these when questions. And I go, and here's my common answer. There are 10 people on the planet who know the when, and I'm not one of them. Simple point. But even those guys have to come, when they come up to a potential time frame, they're asking just what NASA does. NASA actually asks the question, I know a lot of you have, there's a lot of controversy about NASA, and I don't want to get into the controversy of it because some of it I agree, okay? But here's what I want you to understand that happens. There's a group of people that are stuck in different areas of technology around the one person who's making the decision. Now, she is the flight director. And so she's saying to each one of these, go or no go. Okay? So she's saying go or no go. And if it's go, 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 And she comes to this one and he goes, no go. She's like, well, why? And he might say something kind of silly. She's like, no, can you fix that in flight or not? And he goes, well, yes. Then go. I mean, and that's where you get all kinds of interesting opinion points, right? But if you come up to the next one, let's say she answers that and she comes to this one and they go no go, and we really undercalculated the amount of fuel we needed for the thrust points, whatever that is. And she's like, whoa. Do we have a leakage? Yes, we think we have a leakage. Well, we really got a big job ahead of us, right? So they basically scrub the launch. That's how that stuff works. I've had a lot of friends who are in aerospace industry, I have people around me. And so we've talked a lot about this because I'm so into, space travel with this stuff too. And yet this is the go, no go kind of thing. And when the 17th letter people, the military intel points, are asking these questions, you're trying to identify it from a go, no go standard. But you really should be asking these questions here. You should be asking the who and the why. Now, by the way, the Bible talks about the who and the why. Yeah, I have it over here. So this is the DVD version. You can buy it from us if you want to buy it. Down the road, we will have these available for it. Right now, it's $100, but you can't get it on. You can email me and we can figure out a way to mail it to you if you want to do that. And so you could pay it through the website if you wanted to. So we'll figure out something like that. But Hope in the Last Days series, a 12-part series, and this is where I talk about this a lot. We want to ask these when and how questions. Those are the bad questions. We should be asking the why. We should be asking the who. Because it's so fascinating. I think that many of the guys that are on the 17th letter team, and there's, I don't know, however many guys are in that team, those dudes are doing the no-go. Go, no-go kind of thing. But what they're doing is they're thinking on some of these issues to answer these questions. So they're thinking about the whys and the whos. Let me give you an example. When they think about the cabal, they're asking the questions very uniquely. They're asking a question like, do we have the key players done? Are they arrested, controlled, or in Gitmo, or processing through Gitmo? There's actually a unique thing. There's actually a place they'll fly to Florida, then they'll transfer in a plane. If you watch Mil-Spec Monkey Works, and he does real interesting stuff, and they'll transfer in a facility inside, so you don't know what they're transferring. Who they're transferring. So again, who? We want to ask these when and how questions, right? Don't worry about that stuff. The real question is the when, or excuse me, the who and the why. Now, when we think about the who and the why, these guys will transfer into Honduras, and that becomes maybe a beginning point of when they kind of do some of the arraignment. Now, it's not like other situations that you think of. It's a military level circumstance. That's why COVID was so powerful for what it's doing. It's a cover for the military to do the devolution of Kash Patel, which is a gorgeous series that you need to understand. Basically this, it devolved the government, let idiot Biden sit over there, be president of DC. It's taken me a long time to admit this, okay? Because I wasn't asking the questions right. Trust me, I do the same thing. He's the president of DC. That's it. He's the president of the corporation. That's why he can sort of interact with the leaders of the world. Now, what's happened in the past is when presidents like Bush or Clinton or Reagan or whatever, whoever good, bad, indifferent guy you like, he's operating as the corporation president and the constitutional president. So he's standing in two different kind of arenas dealing with both things. He's getting pulled by the Fed and the corporation, getting pulled by the people back and forth. And this is a struggle. And by the way, if you notice, why is it that presidents, when they get into office and then they come out of office, they look haggard and gray-haired. Look at Clinton. He walks in and then when he goes out, because it takes a toll. And it's because these people have sold their soul. That's one of the reasons why you see the haggard nature of these presidents, because it really is an ugly process. Okay? But we keep asking these other wrong questions again when we ask the who and the whys. This is the no-go conversation we should be looking at. Because when we say, are all the guys picked up, all the bad boys picked up? Why do we do this? Okay, so let's erase some of this stuff. Why are we accomplishing this situation here? There's a real powerful conversation, and it's the why of World War II. Later in the war, when, the American public is so tired of World War II, it's 845, and the Germans didn't give up until May of 45. Hitler dies, and his birthday is April 20th. He dies a couple weeks later or a week later or something like that. He kills himself, and there's a long story about that issue, but he, supposedly kills himself, and then they keep fighting, fighting hard and in the streets. And they don't give up until May, or early May. The Japanese don't give up after two nuclear weapons are dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they don't give up until days later, until September something. I'm blanking the date off the top of my head. And when you understand the American public is so tired of this, do you feel the same way? They're tired of this. And they're asking the when and the hows. Okay? So the real answer is the who's. So the who's and the why's. There are 3 points that have to be addressed in the EBS. Now, the EBS, Emergency Broadcast Signal, it was done by Kennedy in the 60s. Well, interesting point. So JFK Sr. is processing this response. And he wants to get it out through 2 main sources. And he picks the mainstream media. So he's thinking about TV and radio. Now, he does this because he's trying to go, there's a national emergency. Okay? So there's a national response in here. Okay? So emergency broadcast signal. So send this big signal, and they have these little towers up there, right? Now, in the 90s, they changed it to EAS, Emergency Action Signal. So they adjusted it so that they could send it out in more of a modern format so they could kind of get it out there. And so they had the more modern way of doing that kind of thing. The emergency action message is what the 17th letter actually talks about in an EAM. Now, how you actually look at this, now I'm going to answer a little of the how, is that you also still have to deal with the main point, the lying media. This is why Trump keeps talking about fake media. And so you have to deal with TV, Now, radio too, but for the most part, you're going to take over that, but that's really the main point. But you also have to do social media because they have been lying and controlling things. Oops. I'm not going to say these names. Although I will say fake book. And so these ones were actually created by DARPA. All three of these. That's why they're such gorgeous platforms. So, other ones can't compete with them because of the way the platforms were built. Because they were created by the CIA. And so you have to control these two because they lie like candy. They're just eating the lies, or they feed you the lies and you just keep eating it because you keep asking the wrong questions of the people. And if you would ask the whos and the whys of what happens, this is what they're going to address. So you're saying, I hear these people all the time, well, I don't listen to TV. Well, guess what? They're going to send a signal by internet. You're not going to turn off electricity. You're not going to turn off, anything else. You are going to override these two because you got to deal with the liars. Okay? You're not going to turn off the internet. That's just dumb. You're not going to turn off electricity. That's dumb. You'll kill people. You turn them off for a day. Might there be an interruption? Sure, there might be an interruption. Okay, I'm not talking about interruptions for a few hours. I'm talking about when I call it EBS because I'm old school, but the EAM is going to come to your phone. They have reverse 911 calls. It's real interesting that they bombed the towers on 9/11. Okay, but they have reverse 911 calls, so you can get your cell phone out, and they will send you emergency action message. And it's all about a national emergency. Okay? Now, that gives you some of the background. Now, let's talk about what I believe. Okay, here's predictive. There are three basic messages that are incredibly important. What are the three messages that I believe you have to address? Number one is this idiocy. Can you read that? This was the cover for NESARA. It's also the cover for the devolution. It puts you in a national emergency. It keeps you in the national emergency. Excuse me. It keeps you in that national emergency for a time frame. And when you're in the national emergency under a time frame, it hijacks the processes of the government. That's why these people are not allowed to come off of this. They don't know why. They're just pushing this fake narrative. You understand the fake narrative. But they're in the national emergency, which says that we can cordon off DC to let the fake president and the fake Congress, who frankly, I don't think one of the reasons why I hate the media is they're not even meeting in the White House. When the fervor came up of the people going, you're not even in the White House, they said, well, we can't put teleprompters in front of the idiot Biden. And I'm going, oh my God. Everyone has seen any movie who the guy's sitting there in any movie that you want to come up with. Deep Impact, right? is it Samuel Jackson, or, well, you guys know. The interesting president, he's sitting there and he's reading the message from a teleprompter. Duh! They can do this. This is not hard. But they can't put him in the White House because he's not there. They were cleaning out the White House. The media knew they weren't there. That's why I don't listen to any of them. Whoever goes there is just lying to you. And it's because of this. So they're not letting them go to the particular places. So this is a cover point, and you have to kill this one. So you're going to kill this one, which stops the national emergency. The second thing that you have to address in the EBS messages is Executive Order 13818. And Executive Order 13818 talks about crimes against humanity. Now, in crimes against humanity, it's not just like he murdered someone, he killed, or he stabbed 10 people in Canada or whatever. I mean, we're talking about big situations. This is actually Nuremberg level. This is code for Nuremberg. Now, in the Nuremberg trials in 1946 through 1948, they started to set up a precedence. And the precedence was that people would say, well, Hitler made me do it. Now, one of the powerful points that actually occurred about, killing the Jews and the undesirables, so they killed 6 million Jews and 5 million undesirables, is they utilized this one point. So that in June of 43, the Germans and the Nazis invaded Russia, or USSR, and they were moving through the towns. And they would move through the town. The Soviets would destroy the town, burn everything that they could, right? But they would kind of leave the people. I mean, because they really couldn't take the people. They didn't care about the people. So it's a long story about how gross, these. When you think about capitalism and communism and all these other isms, they're just all sicknesses, okay? They're part of the corporation stuff. What the Nazis would do is they would come in, and they would separate out all the Jews, and they would walk them back, and they would shoot them in pits. And when that was not efficient, they had these gas vans. So they would gas them. And so the guys that were in charge of this were like, we're talking about the Wehrmacht. They were like, we can't do this anymore. I mean, and if they were allowed to get off of that duty and go back and be a frontline soldier. Very clear. The Nuremberg trials actually kind of told you that, hey, listen, if you didn't want to, you didn't have to do this. So when you did it, you made your own personal choice to do this. So when it says crimes against humanity, we're going to take your property. And I'm like, take your property. If you got like Nancy Pelosi, who supposedly has 150 million, which is a bald-faced lie, Pelosi has more than $1 trillion. She is way richer than you understand. And so is all of them, Warren and all the rest of these. These are sickos, okay? I mean, there might not be trillionaires, but they're billionaires many times over. Okay, you have no idea the financial resources of these idiots. And it bothered me for a long time. What this really is saying, and there's like 6 different things. You can't borrow, you can't do this stuff. And when this thing came out in December of 2017, it was already happening to them. What it meant is a bankruptcy event. It was going to bankruptcy all of these idiots. And what you don't know is that from that time frame on, this is not even a year into his presidency. It's got to be like, 9 months into his presidency. Trump is already like ripping all of their resources away. Do you know that most of the big time cabal members were like getting divorced? And you heard about like divorces of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all these other ones, and you kind of wonder, like, why? He was going to bankrupt them. Now, when you go through bankruptcy, we think about bankruptcy like you lose your property. So they repossess your car, repossess your lands, and they take your but here's what they're going to do. It's deeper because this is military level bankruptcy thing. They seize everything. What do they do with all those resources and the dumbs and everything else? They put it into the Saint Germain Fund. And I want to tell you a code of something. So idiot Biden of the corporation says we're going to like forgive 10% or 20 or 10 or 20,000 of student loans. And everyone's having a hissy fit because the Great Reset, that is Great Reset conversations. And so we're going to forgive them, and then the working man has to pay for it. You're not going to pay for this, because what happens in here is the Saint Germain Fund, the Saint Germain Fund is the money from these idiots. And they're going to pay and have, sorry, man, I keep writing it wrong. They are going to pay the debt forgiveness. They're going to pay it so deeply, they're going to pay all the debts off. It's because they're going to pay. I mean, it was a code to me. And I started like going, yeah, baby. And people go, why do you get so weird, excited over dumb things that we're not seeing? It's because you keep asking the wrong questions. You ask the when and the hows. I'm listening for the whys and the whos. This is the why of the EBS. You have to do an EBS. Don't listen to anyone who says you don't have to do an EBS. You have to. No question. Or EAM. Because these people don't want to tell you the truth. But the military is going to tell you the truth of this thing. So, you have debt forgiveness that comes through the Saint Germain Fund because we take it from the cabal through Executive Order 13818. And lastly, you have to deal with, sorry, put it over here. Need to clean the board, don't I? Okay. And lastly, you're going to put it through one major area. Executive Order 13848. And this is election fraud. Why do they hate Mike Lindell? Because he did absolute proof. He proved election fraud. Now, everyone wants to talk about the gorgeous information on 2,000 Mules. You guys know what it is. I'm blanking his name. And what that was talking about is he was talking about voter fraud. And I mean, it was systemic voter fraud. Mike Lindell, they hate his guts because he showed absolute proof. And he showed the election from electoral level. And I have people that get after me because like they go, well, why aren't you going to vote? I won't vote in the primaries. And I believe that, you had to do it before the primaries. No, it wasn't time yet. Again, it wasn't time yet. And you can't have the midterms. Why can't you have the midterms? And people go, okay, and I go, okay, let's just put it to this way. I know it's not a presidential election, but I want you to catch this 1 second with me. If they turned and make up a number, let's just say they turned 70 million votes away from Trump. 49 states actually voted for Trump, including California. And if and 80% in 2020 that you didn't know most of the stuff that was happening voted for Trump, and 20% for the moron. And so here's what's happened. The moron that the idiot MSM will tell you about, the polls are like, oh, he's got a 35%, oh, that is 35% of MSNBC, CNN. No, guys, you don't understand. His ratings are like 8% or less. It's single digits, whatever that is. Actually, these guys say that the 4 to 6%ers you can never fix. I would say that idiots' pollings probably are around 4 to 6% of the people probably won't, no matter what you say inside of this, they won't get it. But it's because what they're trying to share with you is this is how they control the money. It's all about the money. This is how they control government. And the EBS is going to share these 3 main points. Now, I know you want to hear about 9/11. I do too. I know you want to hear about JFK Sr., JFK Jr. I know you want to hear about some of the stuff. But these are the foci I believe that we've got to focus on. And in these 3 main elements, sorry. In the 3 main elements here, these are the things that I believe there are the foci that we have to go after. Afterward, after the EAM, you're going to be able to have water cooler conversations about each one of these things. And you're going to go, what does that mean? What happened? Now, I believe that there's going to be production companies. Now, here's a predictive point. And I believe that I want to do some of that stuff in the future. Production companies that they're going to spend time, forget about the idiotic movies that they want to put out there, the superhero movies. We need to spend time in talking about documentaries. We need to have my son Hunter. You might, I see people saw it's like a B-rated movie. I loved it. It was gorgeous. I saw it on low definition with this too. But guys, these things are powerful messages, and I think there's so many more messages. Historical documents, that we need to look back. We need to look back at World War I. We need to look back at Korea. We need to look at Vietnam. We need to look at JFK. We need to look at Lincoln, why he died. We need to look at the presidents that were killed and why they were killed. We need to understand that the cabal has been focusing on one area because this thing revolves around one area. That's why some truthers don't understand NESARA, and they don't believe in the debt forgiveness. And the reality is you have to kill the cabal. You're not going to get your interest back. That is just stupid. Sorry, I know you want it back, but what about a loan that all those loans I've had in the past? July of 21. I'd had this business loan, and it's been through different manufacturers, hearing aid manufacturers. At one time, 09, I think it was like $235,000. And in July of 09, June of 2021, it's about $21,000. And so I think I was making $1,900 a month payment, something like that, right? And God goes, I want you to pay it off. And I'm like, yeah, but NESARA's gonna pay it off. Scott, I want you to pay it off. Oh, I argued with him for like a week and a half. I didn't sleep that week. I barely sleep anyway. I don't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours a night. But I'm arguing with God. And he goes, I want you to pay it off. But why would I pay off something that is going to be paid off? Why would I take money out of savings, the business savings, to pay this thing off? Because what I had to see is this. I'm going to erase this part here. What debt forgiveness is going to do for you, and I'm going to end up with this little point. What debt forgiveness is going to do is going to operate something. It's called the personality of liberty. Now, you also might call it freedom. This is the old terminology of liberty is really freedom, okay? Liberty means that you were free. You don't understand freedom. When the New Testament, Old Testament was written in the King James Version, they use the word in the 1611 King James Version. They use the term liberty when it talked about freedom. And so when we talk about the personality of this, when I did a deep study dive, and I spent years upon this actual term, and that personality, liberty, has everything to do with money and debt. When you're in debt, you're in slavery to these idiots. When you're in debt, you are controlled by that. You have no liberty. But when you're out of debt, and I've watched people operate outside of debt, even though they were in debt. So God asked me to kill a loan because he wanted me to understand what liberty was. And he wanted me to teach this to you. And I've been spending a lot of time on this. And so I had to have the pain of paying off $21,000 way before NESARA was supposed to happen. I thought NESARA was going to happen then, but it's wrong. And he wanted me to understand what liberty was getting after, what you can live within. And there was a lot of emotions that kind of came up. When you experience debt forgiveness, debt in scriptural terms equates to sin. I think the world, when they experience truth, debt forgiveness, taking away the cover, are going to operate in a debt forgiveness point. And they're going to go, wait a second. Now, some of them are going to think about getting back in debt. If you watch my videos, you're going to realize it's a bad idea. It's going to be harder to get out of debt in the NESARA era. It's a longer conversation I want to get into now. But the reality is, when you operate and you put this into the world, you are going to see a move of God in a way that you have never imagined. It's because when you put things, spiritual principles, businesses do this all the time. Sales organizations come up with a concept, and they talk about, like, one of the powerful things in sales operations, they would say, listen, ask the questions, ask questions. They don't, every time you try to answer the questions, the customer walks in and asks a question, like, how much is the car? When does it do this? When does it do that? And the salesperson's answering all the questions. The sales manager's over there screaming like, oh my God, stop Stop answering all the questions. Start asking questions. Because what questions do is put you in control. And this is the kind of thing. Where did they get that idea? Do you know where they get it? Jesus did it for you. It is a biblical principle. The Pharisees ask a question. And they basically set this up. Okay, Jesus, a woman gets married to a guy, he dies. Then she gets married to another dude, he dies. Gets married to another dude, he dies. And she gets to heaven. Which one of the brothers is she married to? And Jesus never answers the questions. He does it 2 or 3 times. This is not just the only time. He goes, I'll answer that question, you answer this. Or he says, you're not even getting what you say. And he basically says, you don't get what you're saying here. He's not married to any one of them. And he answers the questions in such a different way. Other times he just says, answer me this. Or as we would say in modern terminology, riddle me this. So when we utilize biblical principles, they operate so well in marketing and in sales, management, all of these business concepts. And they operate in philosophy. So many ways. But when we put this into the world, a debt forgiveness thing into the world, you're going to see people coming to Jesus because they're going to realize that their sin needs to be out of their life. And you're going to see the greatest move of God. That's why when people talk about the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset, it's the wrong thing. I have a whole video series you can kind of look up. This is about NESARA versus Great Reset. This is about debt forgiveness. It's going to lead the people in ways you just simply can't imagine. I know I went on kind of a rant there, but I'm telling you, when you see what the EBS is trying to do, deal with COVID, deal with crimes against humanity, because you got to show the child trafficking. Because when you see this, I don't care who you are, left wing, right wing, wearing blue hair because you teacher and you have all the liberal principles, the libs of TikTok. There's a real interesting kind of videos they do and they make fun of them all the time. I don't care who you are. But when you see the child trafficking, and by the way, it's so fascinating that you got trannies out there and they're dancing in front of babies, little kids. And the world's going, that ain't okay. And you got idiots who, the 4 to 6%ers over that I was talking about here before, who allow that. When you see the real child trafficking, you're going to realize, the pendulum is going to swing so hard over that these people are going to go underground. They're going to, not in a good way, in a bad way. They're going to get shut up. Now, some of them are going to jail, but the other ones of them just pushing out their idiotic philosophies are going to shut up because they have no idea what it means to do this. This was the control of the systems. And you have to fix these same things. Then you can fix the rest of it. You can go in and fix that, but you have a role of this. You are the senators, the mayors, the city council. You're the teachers. You're the Bible study leaders. There's a couple, Randy, and I'm blanking her name out, Rebecca, I think it is. Please forgive me. They're in California. And they called me up and they were like, we want to do this fire pit, and they have this place in the fire pit in the backyard, and we want to do hot dogs or something like that. I don't remember what she said. And we want to do this and preach the gospel, and because the church is not doing it. And is there any training? And I'm like, and so I talked to them enough, and I knew that they're really strong believers. I'm like, there ain't no training for that. You're getting trained by the Holy Spirit to do this. Go! I just got called up by, last night, or emailed by, on my Telegram channel, guys got in a city just close to us in Tulsa, is Broken Arrow, and the guy goes, we have 30, 40 people that come in. Sometimes you get 80 people. Would you come and talk to us, in person? He goes, do you do that? I'm like, yeah, I love it. And actually, this message comes a little bit from what I prayed over this morning. I was up at 5 in the morning and I was going until 6:30 and then got ready and then came in here and now I'm finishing this message with you guys. This stuff comes out of prayer. It comes out of understanding what's going on in the world, and this stuff is going to get addressed. Then you can again address that and you become the leaders. You're like the horse in the the metal cage, and she is like ready to run. And she's pushing at the cage to get out onto the racetrack. The world's sitting over there going, what we doing? We're screwing around. To use an example, they're sitting over here with a little chair going, what's happening? You're over there ready to run, and when you're running, you're going to be the leaders. They're going to be out to lunch, shoved to the side in essence, okay? Activate. It's time to activate. Know what we're talking about, know what we're getting into, but I hope that you can actually represent some of this message too, because it's there for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. You can go look at Dr. Scott Young to go see some of the stuff. Revelations of the Red Pill. It'll help you out. Thank you so much.